been a great day today for me, definitely, and been enjoying the weather, even though it's not been as hot as previous days, but still the weather is beautiful. Just to say then, over this weekend we do have our Illuminate Sunday evening service, which takes place this Sunday, the 14th of June. And we are honored to be having Bishop Ben Felez, and he's a wonderful speaker. And you don't want to miss that. You certainly don't want to miss also our youth focus, which will be led by Rachel McCoy from Region 4. She's been on it before. She was that good, and she will be back again and sharing with us. So we look forward to Sunday night. So please join us for that. Also, we want to let you know as well that prayer is going on every day, except Saturday. We have lots of other things going on Saturday. So you can join us anytime throughout our prayer sessions. And what you can do basically is just go to cogop.com, and all the information is there, cogop.com. And you'll find all the information that you need and how to join us. And we'll be delighted to welcome you to that. Also, Bible studies as well. Thursday night is my night, actually. It's Errol Williams' night. What that simply means is I teach on that night. Wednesday night is youth night. Friday night is men's night. And tonight is men's night. And then Monday and Tuesday, we oftentimes ask other people to teach on those nights. So if you'd like to be a part of that, drop me an email, give me a text, and we go from there. We also want to let you know that we do have a virtual funeral service that we are running in the church. And so if you're interested in finding out more about that, go to cogop.com, cogop.com/virtual, and all the information is there. It's a paid service, and one that we believe that you could take advantage of. And we can do this anywhere in the world. So come and join us, and we'll be delighted to accommodate you. Final thing I would like to say is about what's happening tomorrow. That's right. Tomorrow is a big day for us in the Church of God of Prophecy Men's Ministry Department. We have set aside 3 hours for our men's conference. So we are looking forward to that with great excitement. Well, I am, at least, because it's going to be great. I know that. When you have speakers like Bishop Ray Vieira, who's going to lead our prayer, and he's a mighty speaker, actually. I think he's a better speaker than he thinks he is, because I listened to him once in where was it, Bristol, and I was absolutely shocked at how good it was. And I'm not saying that just because he's here, because it was truly good. And so he'll be leading us out tomorrow. And then we have Bishop Adrian Varlek. We have also our father in the house, Bishop Tedward Powell, our presiding bishop. And then we have a discussion and some other things that we're going to do. And Aaron Christopher is also going to speak a little bit on behalf of the young people. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We are going to get going then, because we don't want to lose any time. The discussion tonight is very, very important to us. And so I'm going to bring my panel on, and then they're going to introduce themselves first. We're going to introduce Brother Errol. He will introduce himself, and then Brother Rob, and then we have our bishop with us, Bishop Ray Vieira. So thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to go right on over to my wonderful panel tonight. You've probably seen them before. So Errol, go ahead, sir, and introduce yourself and welcome.
All right. Good evening, everybody. My name is Brother Errol Lynch. I worship at Gloucester Street in Wolverhampton, and I'm the men's ministry leader there, amongst other things. I'm also a learning and development consultant. I've been doing that for over 21 years, and it's indeed my pleasure to be part of this panel.
Amen. Good to have you. Rob.
Yes, good evening all again. My name is Rob Clark, Region 4, member of Small Leaf Church of God of Prophecy, Regional Director, Region 4. Been heavily involved with men, young men, mentoring, etc. It's a bit of a passion. Work full time. Jaguar Land Rover. Even in there, I'm involved with diversity and inclusion. So yeah, looking forward to tonight.
Amen. Thank you very much, and welcome again, Bishop Ray.
Good evening, everyone. Raymond Vieira from Region 3, Regional presiding bishop for the region. I share that with Bishop Bernard Morris, and senior pastor at the House of Praise, community engagement and so forth, working with gangs and young people in the city. God bless you.
Amen. I must say, Rob and Earl, I went to Bristol once, and I can't remember why I
Yeah.
went, but I went to a takeaway, black takeaway. So while I was there, I thought I would ask them, "Do you know a guy called Bishop Ray Vieira?" He said, "Bishop
Oh
Ray, that's
yeah.
our
Oh
pastor. That's our pastor."
yeah.
So
Yeah.
Everybody knows Ray. Yeah.
everybody knows Ray. I
Everybody
think
knows Ray.
if you came to London and asked, "Do you know Errol Williams?" I doubt very much if you get that kind of response. But
Oh.
I was
Agreed.
truly blown away with
I
that.
wouldn't be surprised if Bishop Ray was kicking that statue into the harbour the other day, right at the front, right at the very front.
We
Yeah,
certainly
get
find out.
him.
We certainly find out in a moment about that. Now, I think
Oh Lord.
let's get straight into it, really, because I've
Yeah.
got the picture behind me of George Floyd, and that's our discussion tonight. I can't breathe, and so on. I mean, you guys have seen the developments and what's been going on. Now, let me start with you, Earl. What's been your thoughts to date as what you see happening?
My heart bleeds when I think of what happened to George Floyd. Now, don't get me wrong, George Floyd wasn't necessarily the most angelic person on the planet, but nobody deserves to die the way George Floyd died, with a knee on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And the thing is, this is not the first time this has happened. This is not just happening in the United States of America. We've heard of people like Breonna Taylor. We've heard of Trayvon Martin and the brutality that they have to undertake when they are
Mm,
arrested by the police. We have to stop this violence and fear that the police have against us as black people. And it's rooted right the way back from slavery days. They don't see us the same. And it's not just over in the States. I've got friends here in the United Kingdom who died at the hands of the police, and it's often
mm,
during the arrest, and it's often during the when they're held down. And I've got an old friend called Oliver Price. He was in Middlesbrough, and he was killed by the police in the back of a police van. I've got another friend by the name of Clinton McCurbin. He was killed next with a chokehold. And a lot of these people get asphyxiated, and it's got to stop. It needs to
mm,
stop. And clearly, the world right now is frustrated because often what happens is the police officers don't get convicted.
mm,
So it causes us to be even more frustrated, and frustration will boil over into riots. And I'm not condoning the riots, I'm not condoning the looting or the burning that sometimes takes place, and the bringing down of these statues. It will lead to that. And some of these statues, now that we hear the story on the TV, you hear about the racist backgrounds where many of these people have come from, the
mm,
backgrounds of how many slaves they had, the fact that they were compensated from the government for having slaves and having lost their
mm.
property. It's wrong, and it's rooted in racism, and the racism spreads right the way through the system, in the law and order, in housing, in education. It's in the government, it's everywhere, and it must stop now.
Amen. Rob, your take on it, sir. Thank you. Mhm.
Yeah. Similar to Brother Earl, really. When it happened specifically with George Floyd, I just looked at him and thought that could be me. That could be
Mm,
Yeah,
me. And I heard Brother Earl
yeah,
say he's no angel, but who is in the eyes of the police, especially.
yeah,
We hear so many times of somebody totally innocent, a house being knocked down, and whatever, whatever, right? And before COVID-19, I used to go to football matches. At the back of my mind,
mm,
I don't want to mix up with the police because in my days when I was younger, it was awful. You think it's bad now, but and maybe some of you experienced it in football matches. They would give you monkey
mm,
chants, anything for you to
mm,
react, for them to attack you.
yeah,
And Clinton McCurbin is the name you mentioned. I mean, I've got family
yeah, yeah,
who've had some dealings with the police and so on. So I look at George Floyd and think that could be me. That could be my brother.
mm,
that could be one of my
Mm.
relatives. I know it happened in America, and just to watch that video, it just makes me feel emotional every time. And so I
Mm.
get it, and I know we're going to talk about how people have reacted with statues and stuff. I think that's
Mm.
just one way of venting frustration, emotions, the years
Mm,
of and
mm,
everything. But the thing that gets to me, and maybe because I'm one of those persons, I'm always trying to think, what is in the mind of the person who's doing it. For me, it's too easy to say the police department is racist. I'm not disagreeing, but I deal with the individual first, because if I do something
Mm.
wrong, you're going to say, why is the church like that? And I think, why? What makes this man think it was okay to sit on somebody's neck for 8 minutes? What was he thinking? Where does it come from? And
Mm.
in many ways, I want to hear, I want to understand. And so the last week or so, I've been listening to um, non-black people just to hear,
mm.
and I've been amazed on the response, and it was an eye opener. And in summary, to
Mm.
keep it kind of short, it was they kind of put their head in the sand because it didn't impact
Mm.
them. It doesn't impact
Yeah,
them, and I get it. If it doesn't impact me, then I'm not really going to relate to it. I'll hear the cliche and everything else,
Mm.
but because of COVID-19, we can't breathe. There's a lot of association to that, and because
Mm.
people got more time and not running up and down, again, there's more attention, but for me, it's the wickedness in the person's mind
yeah,
and the people, the
yeah,
police who stood and did nothing. I
Mm.
mean, it just shows
yeah,
you how they had no respect for what
Mm.
somebody with a dark skin, and he's handcuffed. He couldn't go nowhere, but
Mm.
they were
Mm.
proving some kind of superior. And I've had my run-ins with the police over the years, and as much as I haven't sat on my neck, it's intimidating. You
Yes.
you say to
Yes.
yourself, "Don't say nothing." And I've been stopped with my friends when I was younger, and the way they treat us. And yes, they do find things, but the way they treat us, even the reason why they stop us, is not right. So
Mm.
yeah,
that's my feelings for now. I'll probably share a bit more, but
No problem.
it's very
Mm.
emotional because I see that could be me.
That could
Mm.
have been you.
yeah,
Yes. Bishop
yeah.
Ray.
Um, this took me back to a very dark period of my life when, in the 80s, you stayed clear of the police, because when they saw a
Oof.
black youth,
Mm.
they came to a conclusion before they spoke to you. And
Mm.
I was angry is not the right word. I turned to wrath. I was so
Mm.
Mm.
upset by what I saw. And those words, I can't breathe, and he called for his mother. But
Mm.
what
Yeah,
got to me, what got to me was, if you look at the policeman's face and his
yeah,
action when they were shouting
mm,
at him, he pressed down even more. And there was this attitude, well, I don't care. Secondly,
Mm.
when the so-called ambulance, I don't even know if they were ambulance men, came, the way they put that man's body on the stretcher, there was no care for the man. They threw him on in such a way that it was awful to see. Um,
Mm.
Mm.
I know we will talk about it more. The marching, the government, but one thing I've got to say: the system won't change by just marching.
Yeah.
yeah,
Mm.
The
yeah.
system will
I
not
agree.
change. Forget the police. Forget all them. The system is not made for us. It's
Mm.
against us, and we have to.
Mm.
Mm.
The only way we change the system is to be in the system to effect
Yeah.
change, and we've got to educate our children and get them to understand that they have every right to be in Parliament as well
Yeah.
Mm.
and be a police commander. And then my final
Mm.
comment is that I was somewhat amazed how many cases have happened since that still, where police are still doing the same thing. There are videos coming out long after
Yeah, yeah,
George Floyd, but police are still. So there's a
Mm.
disconnect somewhere along the line where they can just feel that they can do what they like. Yeah,
Mm.
so there you go. That's what I feel about it.
Mm. Mm. And thank you guys for that. Yes, I want to show you something actually, and just ask you a question. I just want all the viewers to know that you can ask questions and comments as well, and we will address those. And I just want the viewers to know that I haven't planned this with my guest. I haven't told them what I'm going to ask them. Nothing has been planned. We've been here for around half an hour, but we didn't even talk about this generally speaking. I want to show you something, and I want to ask your opinion. You haven't seen this, and I'm going to show you something, and I probably might play one or two videos as we go through as well. But I want to show you this, and tell me what you think about this. It says here, and this is in America, by the way. I don't know what the statistics are in the UK. And it says here, since 1980, now we're talking about up to 2015, I believe it is, more than 260,000 black men have been killed in America. This is not just by the police, obviously. There's also black and black killing. We're not talking about black women. We're not talking about Asian or other men of color. We're talking about black men specifically. I just want to also add to that to say it has been said also that the slave ships of America today is no longer the ships going across the Atlantic Ocean, but it's the prisons. So the question I'm really asking, I want to start with you, Earl. What on earth is happening here? Because this is bigger than just, George Floyd. Are you with me? So
Yeah,
what's happening?
yeah. This is genocide by any other name. This is how you get rid of a nation worth of people who are not seen in the same way as everybody else. This is not
Mm,
equal. If you, it's rooted in slavery and it's rooted in fear. You got to imagine Westerners went from, let's say, the UK, started here in the UK, went to Africa, got slaves, went and sold those slaves to the Caribbean and the Americas. And then from the cotton and the sugar and the rum and the proceeds which were done by them, they sold it back here in the UK and they
mm,
made them millions from it. So black people from that early stage, when they were taken from Africa and put through the trade triangle, were never seen as human beings. They were never seen as individuals. They were seen
mm,
as property. And because they're seen as property, you cannot therefore equate them to being human beings. So you have to treat them
mm,
like property. You put them out in the fields, you make them work. Those who are slightly lighter skinned, you might want to make them work in the house. That's why we have the field slave and the house slave. But it goes deeper than that because you can imagine there were more slaves often than there were slave owners.
mm.
This whole thing wasn't just about slavery physically, it was slavery of the mind as well. We were
Yes.
we were sold a view. We were sold a view that we are less than human. We are less than useful. We are only useful for the purposes of enabling, like the Americas, the Caribbean, and the slave owners to make their money. So if you go and fast forward over the years, what you'll find is that this mentality has stayed with us and even into today's society, your average black man and your average black woman, they don't get the same opportunities in housing, they don't get the same opportunities in education, they don't get the same opportunities in employment, they don't get the same opportunities through the justice system. Why? Because they're not seen as the same. And not only that, many white organizations will often fear that we are going to retaliate and we're going to get our own back. And we've never said we're going to do this, but the fear is there. And,
Mm,
if we were to ever rise up and do these things, then they would certainly, the racists who have kept us down would certainly worry about their condition
mm,
and whether they're going to have anything. Now, don't get me wrong, it's much more complex than I've given. And there are some good people who are actually on our side. But I think what we're seeing nowadays is enough is enough. And black and white people are prepared to stand and they're prepared to say, enough is enough. Black
mm,
lives do matter.
mm,
They are equal. They do deserve equal treatment. Just like you'd have the feminist movement say,
mm,
all women should be treated the same. We're trying to play catch up here. And all we're asking for is equality. We're not asking for a
mm,
better service. who just want to be treated equal. Now, later on, I'll tell you about how we can put this right, because I've done a little bit of study on that, but I don't want to hog too much of the conversation. But it's
No
rooted in
problem.
fear, it's rooted in slavery, and it's institutional.
Right. Rob, obviously this is amazing statistics really when we're talking about black men. And obviously it's leading to obviously singleness. Let me just before you comment, I'll just make this point. Um, I don't know if I'm absolutely correct if I heard this correct, but I will say it nonetheless. Oprah Winfrey once has said that if every black man in America got married to a black woman, there will still be 70% of black women still single. That is to show you what's happening.
Wow.
So if you've got a situation where you've got 260,000 black
Yeah.
men dying in that, you're talking about 35 years period or something to that effect, something like that. That is pretty high. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, well, numbers. I love numbers. It's just how my head operates. 260,000. My question was, well, under what context were they killed? Versus, and also the proportion compared to others, whether it's white
Mm.
or anything else, was my first question. Because the population of America, I had to quickly Google it, is something like 380 million.
Mm.
Um, and
Mm.
every life that dies is sad to hear. It's sad
Absolutely.
to hear first and foremost because it impacts the whole family and everything. So when I see 260,000, I'm not sure what in proportion that is, but
Yes,
nevertheless,
yes.
any life dies. So and I don't want to go off and assume police brutality, as you said, because not all of it will be, or murder or and everything else. So when I see that number, I just see it's a lot of people over the
Mm.
1980. Yeah, so you're talking, 40 years. And question is, if we can understand what they died of, and not just in America, how
Mm.
can we avoid? So I'm looking forward to Brother Earl's response in he believes he can resolve this, and that's great because for years we've been looking in different ways to resolve this. Um,
Mm.
so I think just linking it back to how we started in terms of police, racism, slavery. Yes, 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 yes. And I think all that's happening, over the last few weeks is awesome. And for me, what I see is the youth are stepping up.
Yes.
I remember just a few years back we were going, well, what are the youth doing? Well, I'm so proud to see the youth doing what they're doing. And
Mm.
we
Mm.
as the older ones, we must continue to encourage them. Yes, we've mentored them and everything. And I was listening to something the other day about what more and what more we can do, and it's to continue to encourage them, keep them steady.
Mm.
This is an emotional period, but for me, I'm not like one of those emotional people who will and everything else. I like to think I'm quite calm generally, and I think that's what it calls for, because I think there's a lot
Mm.
of reactions happening which are not going to fix
Yes.
the problem. There's a lot of spotlight, so everybody now is rising up with their opinion.
Mm.
But for me, the fact of the matter is this is a wave. It's a right move in the right direction. What a way to go. If I'm going to pass, you know, if
Mm.
I get the response that George Floyd did, I'll be so happy, and I
Mm.
hope the family will be proud of me. But what a way to go, to be murdered by
Yes, sir.
somebody who
Mm.
should be protecting you. So
Yes.
the
Yeah, yeah,
260,000,
yeah,
as I
yeah,
say, I don't know
yeah.
the perspective and everything, but
Yes. Yes.
as a black man, we are attacked from every single angle. So we've just got to be aware of that, and just
Yes.
keep positive. As religious, spiritual, we have to pray into this first and foremost.
Mm. Bishop Ray, that's a lot of black men, huh?
Right.
It is indeed, and the figures you're showing there, I'll take the attitude that there's probably quite a few more than that, in
Mm.
terms of deaths, um, especially in the hands of the police. Don't I think George Floyd's murder, lynching, let's use the word lynching, um,
Mm.
was something that the Americans and the world have been practicing for centuries. This is no
Mm.
surprise. And it's just what's happened today is that we now have the ability to record immediately
Mm.
and to
Mm.
transmit.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but there
yeah.
but prior to that, the police were getting off quite easily. So, for instance, when this officer was, I don't even like to use the term officer, when he was arrested, third degree murder, third degree
Initially,
murder,
yeah, yeah.
and that was the third degree murder was death without the intention to kill. That's what he was charged with
Mm,
initially,
That's
and then it
right.
went
mm,
to second degree murder.
mm.
Yeah, and there's still that injustice, even with evidence is facing you. And they're now discussing whether or not he actually knew what he was doing. He was under a lot of stress.
Mm.
So
Mm,
the lawyer for the family said, "Don't be surprised. The outcome might not be what we think." So
Yeah,
with that in
yeah,
mind, we will see a lot more of this because of the
Mm.
injustice within the system,
Mm.
both on
yeah,
both sides of the Atlantic. We are not as safe as we think here, and I think
yeah,
that we must be on our guard to
yeah,
try and stem this genocide
mm,
genocide
Mm.
of black men and black people. And
yeah,
I really don't care who's offended by those words. It was a lynching, and and it is genocide. That's my
Mm.
view.
Thank you
mm.
for that. And let me play you a clip, and Earl, I would love for you to respond first. It lasts for 59 seconds. It might be something you've seen before. And as I said before, you guys didn't even know what question I was going to ask you. But then again, I didn't even know what question I was going to ask you myself. So well, let me play this. The picture quality is not that great, but you can hear it and probably you can sense what's being said. And you may have seen this before. Listen to this.
I want every white person in this room who would be happy to be treated as this society in general treats our citizens, our black citizens. If you, as a white person, would be happy to receive the same treatment that our black citizens do in this society, please stand. You didn't understand the directions. If you white folks want to be treated the way blacks are in this society, stand. Nobody's standing here. That says very plainly that you know what's happening. You know you don't want it for you. I want to know why you're so willing to accept it or to allow it to happen for others.
Powerful.
Let me just add something to this before you come in, Earl. There was an experiment done. I do have the video here, but I won't show it. It's quite a little lengthy.
Blue eyes,
There was
brown eyes, yeah.
yes, blue eyes and blonde eyes. But Oprah Winfrey
Yeah,
also did it on her show. I don't know if
yeah,
you ever saw that,
yeah,
where
I
they
did, yeah.
divided the audience that were coming for a show into brown eyes and blue eyes, and the impact was devastating. What's your thoughts? And I mean, this is not just America we're talking about. We're talking about America. We're talking about here in the UK. We're talking about wherever black people are. This is what's happening. Your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, you just showed a lady called Jane Elliott, and I remember
That's right. Yeah.
when we were in college, and she came out with this series of studies, and it was amazing because it just went to show that we are not equal, we are not the same, and by virtue of the fact that nobody would stand up in that audience because they they could tell, they knew that we weren't being treated the same, and they wouldn't want to have the pleasure of stepping into our shoes. Now, there's a phrase that goes like this, you know, for evil to abound, all it takes is for good people to not say anything. And
Mm,
that's exactly what's happening nowadays. You've got good people who are not prepared to say anything. They see it, They acknowledge it. They know it's happening, but they won't do anything about it. Why? Because Black lives don't matter. We're just not interested. We don't want to go out of our way to cause any particular challenge here. Yeah, we know it's not fair, but let them take care of themselves. Oh yeah, that guy's been arrested. Don't worry about it. And that is the problem. That's why it's good that white young men and women and indeed elders as well are standing together now, because we're only a small percentage of the population, and it's not us who need to change our situation. The situation needs to be changed by the people that we interact with on a day to day, particularly those who are in institutions and should know and treat us more fairly and treat us better. All we're asking for is equal treatment. And there's a movement in America at the moment, and it's called How We Fight. It's led by Byron F. Wilson. And Wilson advocates that there's two kinds of strategies that we can take on board to try and get over some of this. There's a
Mm.
short-term strategy and a longer-term strategy. The short-term strategy is that, first of all, when police officers like Chauvin are found to do things like we saw happen the other day, there needs to be convictions. If there are no convictions, then we won't believe what's happening and we won't accept what's happening. There will be riots, there will be burnings, there will be lootings, because people are fed up, they're frustrated, and they're tired. Number two, legislation needs to change, because if we don't change the legislation, or if the legislation doesn't change, then that people will get away with it. And the more they get away with it, the less Black Lives Matter. Not only that, the way these guys are prosecuted needs to change, because the people who are prosecuting them, they're from the police service themselves. So they're not going to send their own people down, and therefore they'll always get away with it. So that needs to change. So convictions, legislation, we need to modify the standards by which these people are prosecuted. And then we as individuals here, as Black people, we need to show strength in two ways. Now, in the United States, we need to show physical strength as well as over here, and we need to show economic strength. Physical strength, there's gangs over there they've all got guns, but instead of shooting each other, they should be protecting our moms, our daughters, our aunties, our children. They
Mm.
should be defending. There was one individual who I think somebody lynched them, but if they were armed, then potentially, and I'm not advocating because I hate guns, but if they were armed, they were more likely not to be killed. But the other side of the coin is we don't look after each other economically. Everybody wants the black pound, but the black pound is spent in everybody else's shop, but it's often not spent in our own. We criticize our own, and we should be becoming a force economically where we spend money within our own community like everybody else does, and circulating the black pound so that we can economically become strong. Now, last thing, and this is probably the most controversial thing I will
Okay.
say all night. You ready? These people who have systems and processes against us will not pay attention to us until it hurts them in their pocket and it touches them where they feel some degree of pressure as well. And what do I mean by that? I mean, they have to pay us reparations for what they've done to us. Many of the countries that have got this kind of racist attitude and institutional racism built into it, their countries have been built on the back of our labor as Black people. And we should be compensated for that. And I'm not talking just pennies, I'm talking billions. Now, clearly, if I were to say, right, how much do we want? It doesn't matter. They should be paying us back some kind of compensation. The likelihood of us getting it, I don't know how feasible that will be, but that's what we should be arguing for. Now, here's the thing: if we did get any kind of money from government as compensation, as reparations, we've got to be prepared to know what we're going to do with it. We've got to have a plan. And this is where we should be starting now. What's our plan? What are we going to do differently? So,
Okay.
so I think some of these things need to be taken into consideration.
Thank you for that, Rob. Over to you, sir. You've seen that
Okay.
little clip, yeah. It's a quite a powerful clip. I must say, when I watched it, I was
Mm.
Yeah.
startled. I'm not at this point as well because, you know, if you're in a room long enough, you kind of get used to the smell of the room and don't realize how badly smell the room is until you go out and get some fresh air and come back. You realize how bad the room is, and so many of us can also become nominalized by the
Yeah.
racism that we don't realize how bad it is because we've been in it so long. Does that make sense? Yeah,
Yeah,
go ahead,
definitely.
Rob. Yeah. Mhm.
No, definitely. You know, it doesn't surprise me, and maybe it's one of those coping mechanisms I have within me, watching that, and I'm kind of
Mm.
wondering, realistically, where would that have happened where somebody stood up other than a black person, you know? Because and you could probably use that same analogy, you know, with anybody, basically.
Mm.
But I get the point. I do get the point of the video. But to ask a group of white, what appear to be middle class, this, that, and the other, would you stand? I just, even if they wanted to, they wouldn't. you know,
Yeah.
in some,
Yeah.
in most cases. So
Mm.
for me, I watched it and think, yeah, okay. I think the fact of the matter is, and we've mentioned it already, as black people, we've got our fight on our hands, and it's not because of something
Mm.
that's happened yesterday. It's because of slavery, and it's not just because of slavery. When I was growing up, going through university, it was my first time I was mixing with diverse people, and I just
Mm.
thank, and college for that matter, and thank God people were open. They weren't being racist. They were just talking to me, and I
Mm.
remember speaking to a lady from Hong Kong, and an Asian lady as well. And this is while I was in Dudley, of all places, studying one of my topics. And what they were saying was that, Rob, you're okay. And I didn't even
Mm.
get, what they were saying. And then I said, well, what do you mean? And she says, well, do you know that,
Mm.
my family, I'm just generalizing, based on one
Mm.
conversation, so it's not everybody, but she's saying that in my family, they tell you when you're kids not to hang around with black people, because they're evil, and this, that, and the other. And I
Wow.
know some people might have that reaction, but she was just being level with me, and she was quite
Mm.
relieved to know that wasn't true, And she says, in her culture, that's what they tell you from a very young
Mm.
age, and she's not the only one. I've had more than a handful of people who've told me, and it's something to not just being black, but being black, as in dark skinned. You go to some of the European countries,
Colorism.
and they will
Mm.
treat you differently by the tone of your skin. So as
Mm.
light skinned as you look, brother Errol, you'll probably get more better treatment than I would, right? Because I'm dark skinned. In Jamaica, let me pick on Jamaica. Yeah,
Yeah.
they have
Yeah.
phrases about dark skin and browning girl. So we have classes amongst classes. So yes,
Mm.
slavery is one thing, prejudice, all of this inferior, superior. My
Bias.
point is, I
Yeah.
watched a video that asked the question, but I'm saying you put that in Jamaica or another Caribbean island and say, you see how the dark skin get treated? Who will stand up and they'll sit down the same way? They'll sit down the same
Mm.
way
Mm.
because because for
Mm.
most people it makes you feel good. But I like what Brother Earl said about Christianity and our belief. If you see something
Mm.
wrong and you don't do it to correct it, that's as good as sin, you know. And
Mm.
so
Mm.
I'm saying, regardless of your color, if you see something wrong, we should stand up to it. And enough of us, a lot of us, don't do that. We sit there
Mm.
and we keep our head in the sand. We look the other way. We keep quiet, and we hope that somebody else is going to deal with the matter. So, as much as slavery and black and this, that, and the other, I boil it down to us as human beings. We've got to take more responsibility as individuals, because yes, the
Yeah.
system is wrong, but it takes the individual to change that system. If I'm going to wait on the
Absolutely.
government to fix things, then I'm waiting. I'm not going to see no change. I've got,
Mm.
and I know that all four of us have made impacts to the communities already, not just in your local. but nationally and internationally. But I think the audience need to know that as well, that this is not just a discussion about hypothetically and theory and whatever. We have done some practical things, but what we're saying is that we need more people to do the same thing to make a difference, include spending our money as well.
Yes. Over to you, Bishop Ray. You've seen the video.
Yeah. Yes. I want to deal with something Errol was saying previously. Donald Trump he's going to have his first rally in a place where the greatest slaughter of black people took place in modern history.
Really?
And we're talking about hundreds of black residents were murdered in one day, in Alpha Day. This was a place they named the Wall Street, the Black Wall Street. And it was a prosperous, very prosperous area. Two men had a vision, bought 40 acres of land, and they really made this work. Now, something happened in the city, and they used it. The white population used it as a reason to destroy that dream, and it was a dream because where they were having central heating system, water, running water, in the white population they didn't have it. The banks were prosperous. The key to the success was the dollar, the black dollar. It changed within the community 36 times. Up until this day, no one has replicated that. So the black dollar in that community went round 36 times before it left the community.
Yeah.
That gave them the power they needed. So you had black maids, you had taxi drivers, you had electricians, you had carpenters, you had bankers, you name it. It was all in that community, and they were successful and growing at such an alarming rate that the white business began to suffer, as Brother Earl was saying. Now, there lies the key. Our philosophy right now is that we get a pound and it's gone out of the community. We go to a shop, we'll have a black man shop and other shops. I'm trying to choose my words carefully. And we will bypass our brother and go to another shop and spend that pound. I was chatting to a friend of mine. I said, how do you guys get the prices down so much? He said, Ray, we don't like each other because there are different sects within the community. But when it comes to business, we join forces and we create a cooperative. And when we go to the we're not buying as one voice, we're buying as 30 shops. So what you pay for £5, we're paying for £1.50 maybe.
Yeah.
And that's how they are successful. But we don't seem to be able to do that. So that pound that we have doesn't stay in the community. We spend it in shops, it goes out of the community. Our community never prosper. I have deep concerns about the quietness which speaks loudest in this country about what is happening. From the church, not our church in particular, but Christendom in general, we're not saying enough. From the government, there should have been an uproar. And society in general is too quiet about it. We see all the riots, the marches, don't use the word riot. All the marches we see, and I want to say to our black brothers and sisters and our white brothers and sisters, God bless you. I thank you so much. Something has awoken in you. Something has happened. But we're coming to, once the summer is over and the winter begins to set in, we can't march so much. We're going to be left on our own again. Yeah? And let's not fool ourselves. You know who has the power?
Yeah.
Those same people that march with us.
Yeah.
In Bristol the other day, we don't have the power that they have. They're privileged power. So they have got to. I was saying in a meeting the other day, they have got to ask their MP, what are you doing about it? They've got to ask their MP, to start to take action. I was saying this in a meeting. I have an early morning meeting, and I was saying how disgusted I am of the silence of the spiritual leadership in this country.
Mhm.
The next she rang me. She said, "Raymond, I've contacted my MP. I've written him a letter, and I've told him that if he doesn't do something, if he doesn't say anything, my congregation and every other congregation will not vote for him. He's got to do something." So we need to convey that information effectively.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the two areas of concern is that we need to take charge of our own financial resources, and we need to
Yeah.
able to manage it. And it's not in the latest design wear. It's not in. Everybody likes to look good, but you've got to reinvest the money. Reinvest the money
Yeah.
into your community, into your home.
Mm.
Where if you open up a business, I think I was always told it takes 5 years and plus to make sure that business takes off.
Mm.
And most people get this. A lot of our people, they see 1 year of success, or they're making money, and they go and spend that money on a new car
Mm.
Mm.
instead of reinvesting that money. We need to take charge of our financial future. We need to look at how we do business. When I walk into a black grocery shop, I want to feel nice about it. I don't want to be walking around dirt and things like that. You should make me feel good that I want to come in there, that I want to spend my money with you, right? And you criticize me if I go to the white man shop but his produce are good, they're clean, the shop is clean. Come on, up your game, up your game. We need to treat each other with respect. We need to encourage each other. The church needs to be more vocal in the community, representing the community. In a time like this, we need to stand with our people in the front line, okay? And we need to challenge the government, their lack of involvement, lack of engagement with the black community and what is happening. We have the power to vote them out, right? I certainly will be much more careful who I vote from this day on. And if I don't feel that they're meeting my needs, I'm not going to vote for them. But I will use my vote somehow, because I think it's my duty and my responsibility to vote.
Yeah.
And
Good point.
black votes matter.
That's right. That's a new.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me put something to you guys.
We have more power in the vote.
Yes.
Power in the vote.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me put something to you guys. I want you to assume for a moment that I am the establishment, and I have black people where I want them, which is beneath me. I'm not gonna give up my power at all.
No.
I'm not gonna give up my power because you've marched. I'm not gonna give up my power because you have rioted or looted. I'm gonna hold on to my power as long as I can without giving that power up. Whether I'm the establishment, I'm the white, or whatever the case is. The question I want to ask you guys, start with you again, Earl. Maybe just two things. Don't give me three. Just give me two, and maybe Rob can give me two and think. What does black people need to do to become equal? Because you've been, listen to this carefully. Let me just say this. I'm the establishment. I'm the white man, the establishment, whatever you want to call it, white or whatever. You've been marching. I'm going to say to you guys, you've been marching for how many years and haven't got nowhere? You've been talking for how many years? You've been rioting for how many years, and still you haven't got nowhere? Or you may have got a little place, but still I still hold the power. You guys are still beneath me, blah, blah, blah. So the question I want to ask you guys, I want you to treat me, I'm the establishment and you guys are the black people. What do you guys need to do to become equal or to get to where you want to get? What do you need to do? Two things, Earl. I know I didn't put this to you before. We're talking about action now. We're talking about that, something needs to be done. What two things does black people need to do to get to where black people need to be and stop being seen as, second-class citizens?
Right. I could give you a really
Just give me two. Just give me
straightforward
two.
answer.
Mm.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm not advocating violence. There is a place for protest. It is necessary, and protesting and boycotting is effective. It is effective and it is necessary. We must do this because reason number one, it gives us attention. It opens up the door, it opens up the mind, and it enables the debate to take place. The civil rights movement in America, they boycotted, they protested, but that's stage one. Stage two is we must show that there are consequences to the behavior which we're receiving. And right now, we don't have much ability to show consequences for the behavior of the people who are putting us under pressure. What do I mean by that? If you look at the Jewish community, whenever they suffer with any kind of anti-Semitism, they can withdraw services. They can withdraw services. They're big in entertainment. They're big in the media. They can withdraw services, and suddenly everybody wakes up. Oh my goodness, the Jews are not spending money with us. We need to have a similar kind of thing. There needs to be consequences to the actions. We are weak because there are no consequences in the actions that we take that enable people
Mm.
to go, hey, you know what,
Okay.
we've got to stop behaving like this.
Okay. Thank you for those two. I'm writing them down because I'm gonna test them in a moment. Protesting
Okay.
and boycotting show consequences for behavior. Okay, Rob. Surely
Yeah, yeah,
we not, because this is the point I'm trying to make, Rob. We can talk. I've listened to a lot of talks. Trust me. Before this, I've been listening to talks for the last 35 years, and I'm sure you guys have. But I'm talking about what do needs to happen. Go ahead, Rob.
okay. So, right. Um, for me, it's a mindset thing for me personally, right?
Okay.
So yeah, I think you asked me what two things would you ask the establishment. So it depends on
Hmm.
what establishment you're referring to, whether it's the workplace I work,
The white.
etc.
I'm talking about the. It got to be, for example, which establishment is holding the black people back? Say in the UK, which establishment is
Yeah,
it? The white people? Is it the system? What is the system? Is it the policies? Is it the government? What is it? So I'm asking. Black people are going through all this pressure, going through all of this protesting because of unfairness. What needs to happen? What two things does black people need to do to make a change, to make
yeah,
things change forever?
yeah. Yeah, all right. I'm gonna try and answer, but I'm struggling with it because I hear you and I'm not disagreeing with you, but you just
Okay.
can't fix things like that. So I think it's one in my situation, in my way. I'm gonna ask you, why do you think you're better than me? Whoever that is,
Okay. Okay.
why do you think
Mm.
me as a black person is lesser? Because I'm telling you, we are equal. That's my mindset.
Mm.
I'm not buying into the concept that we're not equal. Yes, we are treated
Mm.
unfairly, but I want to challenge that person in that particular establishment, i.e. the police or with the workplace, wherever. Why do you think you can treat me like this? Yeah, and then my second
Mm.
question would be, and it maybe not the answer you're looking for,
No,
is
no, no,
what is
no.
it you're
It's not what
scared?
I.
Yeah,
No, no.
that,
It's what you
because
think. Yeah. Mm. Mm.
yeah, yeah, and it's just the way I inter. But then I'm gonna ask in my way, what is it you're scared of? You
Mm.
know, because as I say, I'm not into generalization. I'll be honest with you, and that's my mindset because I've got to know that I can make a difference. If I can't, I'm not going to get myself involved because I'm
Mm.
just going to get myself frustrated. So my approach is, you know, get to the, to get to the root cause. You know, you know,
Mm.
why do you think I'm not good
Mm.
enough? Yeah, black, white, Indian, Chinese doesn't matter for me, but I get the context, and
Mm.
what is it you're scared of? And once I can get into that, because sometimes I lie to you, they won't even give you the truth sometimes. But once I
Mm.
can make an assessment of that, I can then plan my attack. Too many times
Right.
we're reacting to generalization, about
That's right.
the police are racist and this is that, and then we get all ourselves all emotional. We do a march and a protest, and we get it out of our system, but nothing changes because we're not fighting anything. We're fighting our own minds in many cases. And it's not to say there aren't issues. There are issues, but we're not getting down to the heart of the matter. So we need to break
Yeah.
down our plan of attack. Otherwise, I
Yeah.
just watch people running around, getting emotional, very noisy and everything else, but nothing will change the next day. And we've all said this at some point today. So that's why I'm being very deliberate in what are you scared of? Why do you think? And if I can get to that, I think I can make a difference.
Okay. Bishop Ray, maybe what your thoughts are?
What was the question? What would I have? Two things
Let me
I'd
let me put it
absolutely.
again. I'm saying I'm the establishment. I'm the white man, and I'm holding black people back, or black people are treated unfairly. They're being treated unequal. Black people are not moving up, are getting where they want to be in society because something is holding them back. So I'm asking, what does black people need to do
Okay.
to brother?
Okay.
Yeah.
Firstly, I wouldn't ask you for anything because I know it's a waste of time. What I would do, I would create an environment where you know you can't do without me. I would be entering into the government. I would be we would be forming the cooperatives, banks, and it's not as difficult as it seems. In America now, there are more black banks than ever. I would be I would be lobbying Parliament in terms of more MPs, more youth going into government, and equipping our youth much better than we have done in the past. Being proper mentors. That is why black men are despised, because if we stand up, okay, we're strong. We're strong people. We're a strong group, and that's the fear, Rob. That's the fear, because in every area that we are allowed to, we gain access to. One
Yep,
time we were told,
intimidated.
I can still remember Graham Souness, and I'll never forget it. Graham Souness was on the television. Why aren't black players making it in? You know what Graham Souness said? They need to take the chip off their shoulders and take the abuse that they're experiencing. Okay, that man has never had my respect. And as soon as Clive Best, I can remember Clive Best, Sil Regis, and all those
Yeah.
guys.
West Ham.
Those
Yeah.
guys were pioneers for us. So they
Yeah.
fought their way, they took the abuse because they knew that they were carving the way for others to come through. So when we get there, we have to help somebody else to come through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Too often, there are far too often, many of our successful individuals disappear into the shires, and you don't hear from them anymore. They no longer re-engage with a common man, the ordinary man on the street. So we do have successes. Let's not forget that. We do have people who are high achievers. We do have, I was amazed when I listened to some of our young people, how bright they are and forward thinking. They are an amazing group. And their ideas and their plans are fantastic. So let's not despair saying we don't have it. We do have it. But somehow we've got to open the door for them. And once you find that black people get in there, they then start the transformation. But there's not enough representation. I agree with Brother Earl in terms of boycotting things, but we've got to have something. Boycotting is not good enough if you've not got a structure to fall back on. You've got to have something in place. So if we're going to boycott banks and business, that people begin to say, well, what's going on? If we're going to boycott the buses, we've got to have something to fall back on. Or we must learn that through our struggles, we are going to experience pain. Okay? And we don't want to experience pain.
The consequences.
We don't want to
Yeah.
experience pain. Right? So we want the success, we want the freedom, but we must understand that comes with a price. Yeah? And it's not going to hand it to us. Brother Errol is right. The system was never created for you and me. So why should I give up my power for you? It ain't going to happen. So what we have to do then is to begin to educate our people. They say if you want to hide something, put it from a black man, put it in a book. You know,
So true.
but that's what they say. Put it in a book, you'll never find it. Yeah.
Yeah, I never find it.
I'm going to finish on this. I'm going to finish on this. GM Motors, was it you guys are sharing it with? They were losing money, and they had the Escalade.
Mm.
And then they said, "How do we sell this car?" They got a black consultant in, and he said, "Right, okay, if we're going to sell to the black community, let's put stereo systems in. Let's make the seats leather, cream leather." He had a spec right down to the stereo system, the TV, everything, wide wheels. For the white community, he said, "Don't make any changes. They won't buy it." Every other community kept it the same, but for the black community, by the way, the showrooms were never in the black community; they were outside of the black community, but they were near enough. And you know, the sale of the Escalade went through the roof. Did the black people own their own properties? No, they rented their properties. So we had a ridiculous scenario where the Escalade, one of the most expensive 4x4, was parked outside a rented accommodation. That's that mindset is absolutely crazy, absolutely crazy. You know, I think that we need to take charge of our own affairs. Let's start to work together. I love what Rob's saying about, and it's true. You know, when I first went back to Jamaica, many years ago, it's changed now. The people behind the bank counter were totally different shade from the ones on the other side. You know, and that was
And in the
Jamaica.
hotels as well, yeah.
Yeah, and
Colorist.
you know,
Yeah, it's true.
and this Chinese man said, "What you want, man?" I'm looking at him thinking, "What?" You know, and there's all these black people and all that, and you know, it's happening in England. We spend our money in these shops, but we never see a black employee in the same shops that we're spending our money. Yeah.
Yes.
They don't hire black people, but we're spending our money in those shops. We need to rethink our rethink.
Yes. Someone said recently that they've never seen an Asian man in a black man's shop buying anything. You don't see them in our barbers, in our food shops. You don't see them and whatever. And the thing is, the point I want to make is because I'm going to still hold on to my position that I'm the establishment, and I'm the white man. Let's say that for now, and I'm the establishment. I have a good thing going, Rob. I have a wonderful thing going. I've got black people right where I want them. They are my slaves, or they're working for me, or whatever the case is. Yes, they're protesting and they're shouting and they're doing all these things. They're looting and burning down. But all my stuff is insured anyway, so I can get them back up in no time. So it's really not a problem.
Exactly.
And I do know that you can't protest, brother Errol, you can't protest forever. So sooner or later, you're gonna get tired of your protesting and you're marching, and then you're gonna stop for a year and then come back after a year, and so on and so forth. And by the way, if you burn down Brixton for a while, I can rebuild it back up, and I'm just gonna put the taxes up anyway on you black people, so that you can pay back for the riot that you caused, so I can find a way of figuring it out. So therefore, it really, you're not really hurting me. I like the point you made, Earl, about the fact that if you're not really hurting me, let me show you a thing. I worked in an organization at Bridge Park where we took over a disused bus garage and converted it into a multi-million pound operation. And we had a guy from Los Angeles that came over. His name was Ted Watkins. And he built the Watts Labor Community Action Committee out of the riot that took place in LA, in Watts. You know, the Watts riot. I don't know if you heard about that. Yes?
Yeah.
He came over to see us, and he met us, and he said something that I didn't believe. He said, "They will only fund you while you're keeping the lid on the problem." but as soon as they no longer need you, they will
Yeah.
they will pull the plug.
Yeah.
And I thought, no,
Yeah.
man, this man is not telling the truth. You listen to me carefully.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened. And what I'm saying
Yeah.
to you is this, that the establishment is not going to change. And so,
Yeah.
therefore, if black people don't rise up and do something, then you black people, let me say you black people because I'm a white man tonight, you black people will be forever protesting, forever shouting, forever rioting, but you're not going to get nowhere. Because how long have you been rioting? How long have you been looting? How long have you
Well,
been going? Go ahead, Rob.
no, I was going to say. I mean, I hear where you're coming from. I'm not saying riot for riot's sake. What you're doing when we have a protest and a
Mm,
boycott is we draw attention to the situation, and we need good people on our side as well. So it's not just to wake up black people. This is us standing with our Asian cousins. This is us standing with white people because there is a cause here which is profoundly unjust. Now,
mm,
just similar to yourself, when you were at the Bridge Project, we were in Wolverhampton at the
mm.
Temple Training Services in
That's
the
right.
Crib.
That's right.
We were
That's
doing the
right.
same
That's when I
thing.
met you. That's when I met you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly. This is how we met. Yes,
Mm,
and we were doing the same thing. And here's the trick: if we are going to constantly go for organizational funding, then we are still not in our future is not in our hands. We have got to get
mm,
away from funding, and we need to be self-sufficient where possible.
That's right.
That's why we need to
mm,
spend the money in our own communities
mm,
and build
mm,
from what we have. We've got to build that up and not
mm,
be reliant on the government funding everything for us. If anything, let's get a grant. Let's not go for loans. Let's get
mm.
something to get us kick-started, but we must be self-sufficient.
Yes. Yes.
If we're not self-sufficient, what happened to what Ted's words? They become prophecy, and
But
then
but
you'll
Earl,
find that
but what happened though,
yeah,
Earl, is
yeah,
you?
yeah,
I think you one of you spoke about Wall Street, yes. So
Yeah.
yeah, Roosevelt,
as
yeah,
soon as I see you building up Wall Street, I set up the Ku Klux Klan,
yep,
and
yep.
I tear it back down. So what you gonna do about that,
I
Rob?
think
What you
I
That's
gonna
think
do? What you gonna do about that, Rob? I'm gonna tear it down again.
no.
Well, it's a strategy. I mean, I'm listening to Wall Street and every street, and it's about I was listening to what Brother Ray was saying about the black
Mm,
community and where Donald Trump is going to then do his rally, and it's about then that vision and getting people to buy into it. Black people
mm,
as a nation
mm,
in a country like America is a very small population, so we're going to have to box clever. You
mm,
can't think even in the UK you can build a black community. I'll ask you what is a black community, for goodness sake.
mm.
I kind of get
Yeah,
what you're saying, but what's the black community when it's at home? Because there's different levels of black. I'm telling you, you can
mm,
go to my brother, what's up, and they'll look at you like what you're talking about. So we got to be
mm.
careful there about black communities because for me, I'm not quite sure what we define.
Okay.
When my brother
Okay.
George died, yes, I get that, but as a black community, I don't know. I'm not
What
sure.
is
I'm
it?
not convinced yet. Yeah. So what my point of all of this is, why are you doing what you're doing? Who have you got on board? Because if you
Mm.
want to do a business just for the black community, it's going to fail.
there you
It's
go.
Okay.
going
There
to
you go.
fail.
There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, you
It's
don't
not
have
just
enough
about being
support in the
black.
world. So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you can call it
But
racist and everything
but
else.
when you say
But
that though, Ray,
strategically,
when you say that, Rob, though, the Asians are succeeding.
because they don't just focus on the Asians, they focus on the black, the
The
Chinese,
wider.
the whole community. It's not
That
just
would
an Asian.
mean then,
But
from
what the
what you're saying, that what you're saying is black people will never ever. Don't forget who I am tonight. I'm the white establishment. That means, from what you're saying, black people will never ever get off the floor because no other nation wants to buy from them. So for
no.
example, the
I'm saying the
Asians is not.
opposite.
No, I disagree. I
Well, what I'm
disagree. I
saying
think
is,
No,
we
I'm not.
okay, if you
yeah,
take, for example, the
we
food
can do it.
store, if you take, for example,
All
your
right.
food store, your hairdressers, which is your two biggest business in this country, your two biggest business in this country is hairdressers and food. and nobody else ain't buying from you apart from blacks.
I disagree. You know, I
Competition is
think
great.
if
Ray,
if
Ray,
we,
Ray, what you
listen,
said? Ray, go ahead, Ray.
listen. Our we are. If you look at the stats, yeah, we are a wealthy group of people.
Mm,
Is the problem is we spend it wrongly.
Mm,
Okay, there must be something why a man who's not a black man will open a hair salon in a black community, because he
that's
knows
right.
that every Friday. Well, I don't suffer from that anymore. Every Friday, you guys are gonna get. I'm gonna get
neither
this.
Earl, neither Earl.
I'm
Isn't
gonna
it?
get the sharp cut. No, but you're gonna spend £20 on a sharp cut. You're gonna spend all this air products. It's
Mm,
yeah,
and you know, you're going to go down to the beauty shop and you're going to get your nails done. The Chinese man, everybody's going to open their salons in the black community because that's where your priority is.
mm.
Okay, all right,
Black Pound.
and and the black pound is wasted because that £1, £10 doesn't stay in the black community. It goes outside of the black community,
Right. So what are
guys.
you guys? What are you black
So so
community gonna
so
do
so
about it?
so, so at the end of the day, we need to look
Mm,
to ourselves now
right.
to one. Do you know how much money we spend with funeral directors in black
Mm,
community?
Quite a lot.
I've done exactly, but how
Quite
many
a lot.
funeral
Mm,
directors in Bristol? None. I've
none
Really?
at
seen
all.
one. I
Yeah,
was so.
we got a few in
It
London, but
sounds.
they're working with
Yeah,
others. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and I seen one in Birmingham, which I was so pleased about. I said to her, "Well done,
Mm,
you."
yes.
She's
Yes.
providing she's providing a service to the community.
mm,
Mm,
She's aware of the needs of the community. I
mm,
have to
yeah, yeah,
stand up to these people and say, "You will treat these
yeah.
people with respect."
That's
mm.
I
right.
shouldn't have to do that. Then we don't have we have the black grocery shop always empty,
Hmm.
but the man
Mm,
down the road is full, who's not a black
mm.
man, but it's in the community. So we do have the Pastor Errol, we do have the ability and the resources to make it work. We do,
But
and
why
you
is it not
can,
working?
because we don't support each other. We don't
Okay.
I
support each
agree.
other,
Okay.
and
So,
and
so
and
just in
and
continue there, Brother Ray. Then don't forget who I am tonight, and I'm gonna bring you guys back next week, and I'm gonna even be tougher on you guys because I am the white establishment. I am the one that's holding you back. In fact, from what you're saying, I'm quite pleased because you're saying to me that you guys have got the money, but it's not spent in the right way. You're spending it in the Asian shops, you're spending it in that shop and that shop. So I'm quite pleased about that because you guys are
well,
unorganized, scattered, and
you
hear what this saying
yeah,
says.
yeah.
It says divided, divided you shall fall.
Yep.
Well,
Together we stand.
Mm,
go on, Earl. Sorry,
No,
I've
well, you
spoken.
see, this isn't gonna change immediately overnight. I mean, we have been ground down to the ground for so long now. It's over 400 years that, it change isn't going to come overnight on our side. It's a mindset we have to overcome here. And
mm.
this mindset will change. And I think you must have hope that change will come. You must have hope that enough people will get on board and see the inequality, see the injustice, and say, this can't be right. This can't be allowed to continue. And they will point to people like you and say, you know what? Errol, you as a white organization, the way you're behaving is intolerable. We can't take it. We collectively, that's going to include the black people, the Asians,
Mm,
the whites, and whatever other nation wants to come behind what is true, what is honest, what is
mm.
just, what is equal. They're going to say to you, Errol, you can't keep doing this. We demand that you change. And we don't wait for you to change. We force change. We
So how are you gonna
force you
force
to
me?
change.
Are you gonna force me?
Yeah, we'll take your power away from you. Whichever way we can do to
Okay.
take your
Okay.
power away from you, we're
Okay.
going to force change until you become equitable, until you serve everybody justly.
Okay.
We can't afford to
Your
have
power,
people like you are pretending to be in this, right? But we can't afford to have people who are going to operate unequally.
Okay.
If I just give you a story, this is really passionate for me because my last name is Lynch. Lynch is a name which comes from Galway in Ireland, and the 23rd mayor of Galway sent his son down to Spain to make a deal, slave deal, with a guy who was part of the slave triangle. And what happened was there was a fight between John Lynch's son and this Spanish guy. And John Lynch's son killed the Spanish man. And nobody would trouble him, nobody would stop him. And anyway, the son came back to Ireland, back to Galway, and nobody would convict him. So the dad said, look, this can't be right. I can't allow my son to be a rogue element in the world. And he put a noose around his son's neck, kicked him out the window. And that was the first time we hear of lynching. Now, lynching also refers to lynch law. Lynch law is trial without a jury. And that is what's been going on across, particularly across the United States for years and years and years. Trial without jury. David Chauvin, this guy, this police officer with the knee on the neck of George Floyd, is lynching, as Ray said earlier. It's trial without a jury. He probably knew he was going to get away with it. There was a lady called Amy Cooper. She saw a black guy in a park, in Central Park, and he was telling her to put her dog on a lead, which is quite all right. But she decided to play the race card, and she decided to call the police, knowing that the police would come and do injury or something to this guy. This is lynch law still in operation. Unless we can get a caucus of people together to say these acts are abhorrent, they're wrong, they shouldn't be allowed, until we take that power away and change it, then we'll be here in 20 years now saying the same thing. So we've got to put pressure on people like you.
Thank you.
But
let me just. I'm going to come to you in a moment. I'm going to give you 3 minutes each, Rob and Brother Bishop Ray. So go ahead. Let me take Ray first, and then I go to Rob, and then we finish off there. Just take 3 minutes, and then close off your final thoughts. Yes.
You've got to remember that your industry. You talk about you can't touch us anymore by burning and hanging us. That's not going to happen. Your survival depends on your pound. And when we start hitting you in the pocket, you will take notice of us. But as long as we spend money with you're not going to take any notice. So you're asking me how we're going to affect you by withholding money from you. If we look at the banks in the UK, there are certain banks, when a black person goes in there, they're not, and it's proven now, they're not getting the same level of service as anybody else. The likelihood is that they will not get any support for their business. They will not be treated equally. Okay, and I remember when I had my business in London, and we had an appointment, and I made the appointment, and I to my colleague, I said, when we go in, he's going to come to you and hello. And I remember Brian said to me, Ray, don't be silly. Don't be silly. I said, Brian, that's what's going to happen. We'll walk in. I won't introduce myself. I've made the appointment. It's my project. And he'll come to you. He'll say, hello, Mr. Vieira. So we walked in and we're sitting in the reception area. And go to the point. This guy comes in and he goes straight to Brian and says, hello, Mr. Vieira. So Brian looked at him and said, that's Mr. Vieira there. His face dropped.
Yeah.
This is the guy that's going to supply all our internal communications, this black guy. He couldn't work it out. He could not work it out. You could see he was stunned. Now, I do feel that we need to equip our children properly. Fathers need to be present. We're going back to that same old thing again about fathers. There is a disparity when concerning our youth in terms of their success rate, but we can turn this around. The church has proven that it can be turned around. I'm proud of the church's success. I'm very proud in that area. I still think we've got a lot more to do, but I'm very proud. So
Amen.
not everything is doom and gloom, but the system will not change by us just marching. The system will change by us using the vote, right? And if you're asking me how I'm
Yeah.
going to affect you, Pastor Errol, the white man, I'm going to affect you by voting you out. I'm going to vote. I'm going to vote against you in every way I can. And when I vote against you, you're going to start to say, "Wait a minute, I
Yeah.
better do
Yeah.
something about my position."
Yeah.
Do that.
I,
You're
I, I,
right. You
I'm,
do, you
I'm,
want
I'm
you want us
gonna
to change.
take. Yeah, I'm gonna take Rob, and then we're gonna close. I think what I would say to that is, you've been trying to vote me out for many years, and I'm still in all
No,
over the
we haven't
world.
used the vote. No, we haven't used the vote.
Okay,
We haven't
but
used.
let me show you this though. But you guys, you black people, are not organized enough to vote me out because I've got
We
some of
will be.
you. Oh, I've got some of you voting for liberals. I've got some of you voting for Labour, and I've got some of you. But what you black people got to understand is, listen to carefully, is that
Yeah.
I, the white man who's holding you back, I'm in every party.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Rob,
Yeah.
your last 3 minutes, please.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we're not called ethnic minority for a reason, for no reason. And so the key to the answer is that we've got to work together. We cannot
Mm,
rely on just the black community. And for
Mhm.
me, to address anything, we need to break it down to understand what is we're trying to break down and why. We can
mm,
say that somebody's racist, and they probably are, but we've got to do as a black person, as me, I've got to understand what do I want. So I'm going to try and answer it in this way,
mm,
in two ways. So in terms of the law, police stopping black people disproportionately than others, we can do something about that. We can challenge via the council. Me, myself, can make complaints and complaints.
mm,
And the more I can get on my side, black and white, will make a difference. And we've seen
mm,
an example with George Floyd. The whole world, not just black people,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
whole world,
Yeah.
has risen
Yeah.
because I believe the young black people, George Floyd's family, are boxing clever. They are no longer walking as if they've got a chip on the shoulder, as some people call it, and they're starting to
mm,
fight the system that way. So we are making changes. In terms of business, I do agree about this black pound, but a lot of people are in a situation where they want to join a company like Jaguar Land Rover, Ford, Mercedes, but they are finding that some of these companies operate very biasly. Let me put it that way.
mm,
Yeah. And so, what I'm trying to do as an answer, as an example, is to be part of a council, make people trust me that, I am not somebody who you can say doesn't have any education. I can box on the same level. And yes, there will be times when I'm not as good as the other person who happens to be white, but there's a difference than saying a black person generally is not as clever as a white person. So what I'm saying is that I'm going to have to rely not just on black people, because in the company that I'm in, there's probably a 1%, 2% of me anyway.
mm,
So for me to make a
mm,
difference, I've got to make a choice. I've got to say I want to fight this system, and I'll probably lose it, but I've made a dent into the wall, and then somebody else will come. Or I choose to walk away from that whole thing and make a boycott and say, you know what, this company is racist. People keep away. It's just a white supremacy or da 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 da.
mm,
And then
mm,
I do my own business. But if I choose to go into a company and want to work myself up and realize and recognize that it's racially, institutionally racist, I've got to have my eyes open and
mm.
almost accept that, and then work out how I'm going to deal with it and how when and and strategize it, because I can't wake up one night and say, right, I'm going to fix this. I don't care, whatever. I'm going to have a mental health issue.
Okay,
So I think
okay.
it's really about
Mm,
targeting what you're trying to achieve. Otherwise, like most black people who are activists, they do
mm,
become very frustrated and anxious. So I want to encourage, because there's been a lot of work, and I can only admire the movement over the last
mm,
week or two or so for the George Floyd, because I've seen some people rise up that I haven't seen
Yeah.
before. And I think all
yes,
we
Yeah.
can
yes.
do is continue to do that, and not to be distracted, because the media, and the people behind it are trying to distract us about statues in the river and this, that, and the
Mm,
other. But those who know what they need to do are doing what they're doing, and I think we can all learn from that. It's not, yes, it's a black race, it's a racist thing, but it can't be just black people to fix this. And if we think that, we're going to lose that battle. We're going to lose that
okay.
battle.
I want to
That's
say
right.
thanks very much. I didn't go to the chat room today, and there's a reason for that. What I'm gonna do though is I'm gonna ask Errol and and Brother Rob to help me to look in the chat room, and then we could dig those and bring that back next week. What I'm also going to do as well is probably add two more people to this panel, people that are on our show. I'm going to actually call people that's on our show, maybe two people to come and join us, maybe next week. So it's, two more, make it around six of us, and so and go. But I hope you guys can come back. Yeah, go ahead, Bishop Ray.
I'd really like to see some younger faces.
Yes, a young, yes. I will try and
listen.
If you guys know anyone, let me know. Yeah, if you know anyone, let me know, and we can bring a few more people in. But I want to say it's been encouraging, but I'm still gonna play the white man next week. So you guys better get. You guys better get yourself ready, because I'm the lightest one here. They used to call me a white man, back in the day. They used to say, "Oh, so white." So but I'm gonna play the white man even harder next week, and you guys better get ready, because what I'm gonna be saying to you guys is, I'm not willing to give up no power. You can protest as much as you like, because I've got everything insured. I know where you guys can hurt me, but I'm not going to tell you. I know you said about the finances, Ray, and I agree with you to a lot of degree, because but the point is, as Rob says, you're minorities. You don't have enough to hurt me. Probably.
But it's worked before. It's worked before in a much more hostile environment. That's why they burnt Wall Street down, because it was
working. I burnt it down because you guys were getting too powerful. You guys were getting too
anymore. But you can't do that anymore.
But hold on a second. Who told you I can't do it? Because I actually thought, listen to this carefully. I actually thought I could get away. With George Floyd issue. As a matter of fact, I might still get away with it. Now listen to this carefully. Earl. I may get away with it, even though I know you're gonna riot. Because if the jury and the judge say it's third degree, and I get my job back, or I get a good pension somewhere, you guys are gonna riot for maybe 2 weeks. But it's just like the Wall Street or the LA or whatever. Yes, you guys rioted. I understood. But while you guys were rioting, I was in my penthouse with my cigar, watching you guys on the TV, while my workers were protecting me. I'll be back next week, guys. You better get ready. I'll be back. Anyway, guys. I'll be back next week. So I want to say,
I'll send in the assassins. Okay, we'll get it back.
Thank you guys very much. And we will certainly back next week with a discussion. And I must say, I call him the incredible Errol Lynch, by the way, because he is incredible, and most of you don't know him, but he's incredible. And Rob, surely one of the best guys I've met in terms of his intelligence and other things, and loving guy. Bishop Ray, he's one of the most positive, more forward pastors that we have in the church. Not just Church of God Prophecy, but churches up and down the country. He's very positive. He's a businessman. I won't go into a lot of the business initiative. Even our local church bought into business that he's doing in Bristol, and he's doing absolutely fantastic and doing a lot of great community work as well. And the community love him. And you've heard the conversation today. I hope that you'll be able to join us next week. Sorry I couldn't go to the chat room. I just was not able to do that properly. And today I do know that there's a lot of comments made. It's a heated subject. But hopefully we can look at that next week. And I'm going to invite somebody. I got somebody in mind I want to come onto the show. And also a young person as well. But yes, black people have been protesting for many years. Yes, I've noticed that as a white person. I've noticed that you guys have been boycotting, yes, in some cases. And, it might have caused a little bit, but not enough to stop me from doing what I'm doing to black people. I see over 260,000 black people's dying, and that's just in America, by the way. We're not talking the world, right? Because black people are dying like flies, and mostly black men. We're after black men more than black women. As a matter of fact, guess what we have done in the white community? I'm talking as a white person. I'm talking like the enemy against black people. Let's put it that way, the enemy against black people. In fact, we've even divided black men against black women. What we have decided to do is to educate black women more than black men, give the black women more opportunities so that we can divide. Do you know that there's more singleness in the black community than there is in any other community? Do you know that the statistics are very, very high? In fact, the black family is hardly surviving in many cases. Fatherlessness is an epidemic in the black community more than any other community. We have more black men in prison today than white, Asian, Chinese, and so on. By the way, do you see Asian people rioting that much, or white people themselves rioting as much as black people? One thing I notice as well is I notice you black people are not necessarily at the table sitting down to talk business about, hotels being built and hundreds of flats being put together. All I see is you guys rioting to some degree. So I'll be back next week. Brother Rob was talking about mindset. Why do you think you're better than us? Well, we think we're better than you because we are better than you. Are you with me? We are better than you. We got better businesses and we've got the money, we've got the power all around the world. So we are better. So, yeah. We notice that black people are not really organized. Yes, they got a lot of money and they've got a lot of education and knowledge, but so divided that it doesn't really make that much difference to us. So Brother Ray says, create an environment where you can do, where, we can do without you. Now that's getting dangerous for me, because if you guys create an environment that proves that you don't need me, then that might put me in a spot of bother, I think. He also says equipping young men. Ooh, that's a bit dangerous. I'm going to have to do something about that, because if you equip your young black men, that means they're going to become too educated. I need to do something about that. Maybe, what could I do? Let me see now. Maybe I could find a way. I'll think about how I can destroy the black young men to make sure that they don't get too equipped by by their people. It was a great discussion, and we look forward to part 2 next week. I'm going to play the role of the black enemy, and so I want to see whether or not my guests are able to challenge me in regards to this situation. Now, what we saw with George Floyd is devastating. It's I'm going to switch now to a black person, right? So I'm now black. Terrible. Absolutely terrible. I cannot believe it happened, really. I really can't believe it happened. But it did, right in front of us. Right in front of us, in broad daylight. And I'm sure the officer saw that he was being filmed. But it didn't really matter to him. As Errol said, it was lynching. And what did he refer to lynching as? Trial without jury. So that police officer, he was judge, jury, and executioner. And do you know that he may get off? As much as we protest and riot and whatever the case might be, he may get off. Because obviously he's going to go before a judge. The question is, I ask myself, I wonder who the jury is going to be. Will the jury be all white? Because if he's all white, we know what could possibly happen. If he's all black, then we also know what could possibly happen in terms of the outcome. I wonder how they're going to make up this jury. I really must say I love the speeches of Al Sharpton. I really must say I admire him. I really admired his presentation. And I like the presentation he gave because he talks about wickedness in high places. And you can look at that wickedness in high places from a spiritual perspective as well as from a physical human perspective. Wickedness in high places. There are people who strategize, who organize, and plan against black men. How to destroy black men. You see, the black man is a leader, or should be the leader in his home, but he has been ostracized, he has been cut off. Now, I want to show you something. When I was in Jamaica, right, I had to, I was around 9, 10, 11, 12. That was the age I was. And Grandma Corel, that's her name, she would say to me, Errol, go kill a chicken for Sunday dinner. And so I would watch how the elder ones did it. And so what they did was they get the chicken there, because we had chicken all over the yard. So, there was all over the yard and so on. It's not like England where you have to go down to the road and buy a chicken, but the chicken was all around us. And so I'd run down the chicken and maybe there was around 20, 30 chicken and I'd catch one, whichever one I caught, and I'd grab it by its neck and I would bring it and I would have a basin and I would put the body inside the basin and the head outside on a stone. And I would have the knife in my hand. And Mama always said to me, listen to what she said to me. She said, Errol, when you cut the neck of the chicken, do not take your foot off of the basin. Keep your foot on the basin. And obviously, I'm a young man, right? I want to see what would happen. So I would cut the neck of the chicken and then I would just move away from the basin and the head went flying over there and the body went flying somewhere else and it does all over the place until all of a sudden all of that began to get low and low until it was dead. What's my point? When you cut off the black man from his family, as was done in slavery, and what's done today in prisons, and what's done in ostracizing black men, you are causing the same thing is being caused in the family. So the family is scattered. So nothing hasn't changed from modern day slavery to slavery in the past. It hasn't really changed. Well, some of you might think it has, but in my mind, it hasn't. And so what's happening today is that in the past, you had the slave ships that would take us from one place to another place. And then today, what we have is the slave ships is now the prisons. Have you ever looked into our prisons in the UK? Have you ever looked in the prisons in the UK? I tell you what you do one day. Go on YouTube and type in prisons, American prisons, UK prisons, and you will get some picture, if you like, of what's going on. There are young black men in prisons in America that will never be released. And when you check out the sentencing that they got for the offense committed, there are white people, white men, who committed lesser offenses and are still walking the street. Think about that. Think about that. So, when you cut off the head, it doesn't matter how intelligent the black woman is. It really doesn't matter. You're still going to have a dysfunction in the family. And there is no black woman that can be a father to a black man, to a black boy. And there is no black man that can be a mother to a girl. It doesn't happen. That's why we were created the way we were. I could only be a father. I can't be a mother to my children. I just don't have that ability to do that. I wasn't created to be able to do that. I can do my best, and I think that black women do their very best. And I commend black women for an exceptional job that they do in the circumstances that they're in. But fatherlessness is an epidemic, and it's created a lot of problems. And research has been done that shows that fatherlessness has created such a major, major problem. Now, if I'm the enemy of black people, that's good news. If I'm the enemy of black people and I see that black families are dysfunction, not all of them, but a lot of them are dysfunction, and I see that black women are single and they're struggling on their own because they're on their own and they're really trying their hard and they're going through a lot of stress. Statistics prove, by the way, that the poorest people within our country are single parents because they only have one finance coming in. I mean, that's kind of obvious, I think, and very logical. So black women are doing a wonderful job. When I grew up, right, and I'm still growing up, there was hardly any man in the house. When I was with my mother, my father left my mother before I was born. Before I was born, my dad went. He went to another woman, to another family. And so I was in a home where there was no man. And then my mother sent me to Jamaica to live with my grandparents. And I was living with my grandma, just my grandma, Corelda, and my auntie. And my auntie had a few young ladies, and there was no father in the house. None whatsoever. None. 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 None whatsoever. And I lived in a home when I came here back at 12. I lived with my uncle for a year, then I lived with my mom for a year, and there was men in the house then. And just for the year that I was there, a year and a half or so, and then I went into prison, right? And so I spent years in prison. And when I came out of prison, I decided to go and do some prison ministry. And so now I'm doing prison ministry. And I remember there's 14 of us in a room. And I said to all the men in the room, those of you that never had a father in the house, please stand. Those of you, there are 14 of us in the room, including myself and another person. And I said, those of you that never had a father living with you, please stand. 12 of us stood. 12 out of 14. That is a disgrace. Fatherlessness. There are fathers, there are men like myself who have children all over the community, all over the country, and we're not taking care of them. Now, if you're a man and you've got children that you're not taking care of, that you don't know where they are, and you've never searched for them, you are worthless. Now, you can get upset with me as much as you like, but any man that has children and do not take care of those children is worthless in my eyes. Worthless. Whether you're black or white, pink or purple, you've got children over there, and you have never looked for them, you've never gone and take care of them, you've never done your best to help them, you're worthless. Take it from me. You're worse than an infidel, the scripture says. In fact, it's the scripture that calls you worthless. In fact, the scripture says it worse. You're worse than an infidel. That you have children that you don't take care of. Well, I want to say, if you're listening to me, my brother, and you have children, don't get upset with what I've said. Get upset with yourself and say to yourself, from today, I'm going to go look for my children. I'm going to go and look for my son. I'm going to go and look for and I don't care how old they are, whether they're 15, whether they're 20 or 30. I'm going to go and look for them and do my best for the rest of my life to support my child. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look after my children. We have left a lot of weight on the black sister. Too much weight. I remember a guy saying to me once, he met me and he says to me that his girlfriend is wicked. She's wicked. And I said, what did she do? And he says, she's taken him to court, and he has £50,000 to pay. I wasn't brave enough to tell him that she's right, but I'm brave enough now to tell him, you need to pay that money. And we just have to. We can't blame that on the white man. we can't blame that on slavery, right? To say, well, the reason why I'm not looking after my children is because I was in slavery, or my parents was in slavery, or because of whatever. No. You're supposed to look after your child. You're supposed to be there for them. My dad was never there for me. Never, not even one day of his life. I don't hate him. I honored him. I buried him. I had more people at his funeral. Listen this carefully. I had more people at my dad's funeral supporting me at my dad's funeral than all of my dad's children on the other woman's side combined. I had almost 3 times more people supporting me at my dad's funeral, who was never there for me a day in my life, but I honored him on his death. I was there for him. Oh yes, because the scripture says to me quite clearly, honor your mother and your father, so that your days may be long upon the earth. It didn't say honor them because they did good. It just said honor them. So I honored him in the exact same way I honored my mother, even though she was there for me every step of the way. So I want to say to all of our men out there, look after your children. Some of us are using our children to hurt our girlfriend or hurt our wives. That's completely devilish. That is stupid. That is idiocentric. That is totally incorrect. We're supposed to look after our children, provide for our children, not just financially, but psychologically, emotionally. And listen to me, brothers. If you say you're going to pick up your child at 4 o'clock, be there at 4 o'clock. You know how many stories I hear of children getting ready and waiting for dad to come, and dad didn't turn up? Do you know the disappointment? Oh boy. But anyway, I'm going to have to go now because we have a conference tomorrow, and just want to remind you about the conference tomorrow. And this is the conference that